Hi everyone, and welcome to Book Nook, an online book club for kids presented by the Forsyth County Public Library in Cumming, Georgia. My name is Miss Leslie and I work at the Post Road branch. This week on Book Nook, we're going to talk about my favorite genre, historical fiction. Wait, where are you going? Come back! I know. Historical fiction might sound kind of boring compared with some of the other genres we've talked about this summer, but I would argue that historical fiction can actually be as, if not more, exciting than fantasy graphic novels or puzzle books, because historical fiction novels are set in times and places that actually existed. I love reading historical fiction because I always learn something new about history while I'm getting to know really interesting characters who had to survive when day-to-day challenges were incredibly difficult. One of my favorite periods of history to read about is the mid to late 1800s. This period includes pioneering, the Civil War, and the abolition or end of slavery. When it comes to historical pioneer fiction for kids, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Little House series by Laura Ingalls Wilder. Set in the forest of Wisconsin in 1871, the first book in the series, Little House in the Big Woods, is a fictionalized autobiographical account of the author's childhood. Laura and her family have to catch, hunt, and grow all their own food and make all their own fun. The 1870s were decades before electricity, so I found it really interesting to read about the toys, the routines, and the many chores that kept kids busy back then. Also, frontier life in Wisconsin was incredibly dangerous and filled with numerous predators like bears and panthers. I liked learning about how to make butter and cheese and how difficult it was for Pa to clean and load his rifle. All that aside, this book was originally published almost 90 years ago in 1932, and it contains some racist themes and language that made me very uncomfortable. If you choose to read this book, I would encourage you to have a conversation about it with a trusted adult who can help you put it into historical context. Aside from ferocious wild animals, harsh weather, and never-ending chores, another obstacle that pioneers faced when they were exploring the frontier was the indigenous people or Native Americans who inhabited the land. Books like Little House give us the white settlers' perspective, but this next book gives us the other side of the story. The BIRCHBARK House by Louise Erdrich is the first book in a 5-book series known as the BIRCHBARK series. The story follows the life of 7-year-old Omakayas, which means little frog, and her OJIBWE community, beginning in 1847 near present-day Lake Superior. The BIRCHBARK House was published in 1999 and has received rave reviews and was a 1999 National Book Award finalist for young people's fiction. Like Little House in the Big Woods, the BIRCHBARK House novel is broken up into seasons. The OJIBWE community in each season works together to hunt, build, gather, and survive harsh conditions, disease, and forced relocation to an Indian reservation. Author Louise Erdrich is actually a member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa, so her portrayal of these characters always comes across as very genuine and reverent. I loved this book, but it is a challenging read due to all the OJIBWE language, even though there is a glossary at the back of the book. There are also some very sad moments in the book which may not be appropriate for early or elementary age students. And speaking of books that will make you feel all the feels, our final book today is Elijah of Buxton by Christopher Paul Curtis. 11-year-old Elijah is the first child born into freedom in Buxton, Canada, a settlement of runaway slaves just over the border from Detroit. He's best known in his hometown as the boy who accidentally vomited on Frederick Douglass. But things change in 1859 when a neighbor steals money from Elijah's friend, who has been saving to buy his family out of slavery in the southern United States. Elijah embarks on a dangerous journey to America in pursuit of the thief, and he discovers firsthand the unimaginable horrors of the life his parents fled. A life from which he'll always be free, if he can find the courage to get back home. This book is beautifully written and eye-opening. published in 2007. It's a Newbery Honor book and the recipient of the Coretta Scott King Award, as well as a children's book bestseller. It is the first book in the series of 3 known as the Buxton Chronicles. I loved this book. Of the 3 books mentioned today, this one is definitely my favorite. Good historical fiction always inspires me to want to learn more by reading some nonfiction about the people, place, or time profiled in the book. Here are 3 nonfiction books from our collection that complement the novels I shared today. The first is called The World of Little House, and it contains recipes, activities, and games that are all mentioned in the Little House series. This is by Carolyn Strom Collins. This is a nonfiction book called OJIBWE Indians. It's by Suzanne Morgan Williams, and this was a fascinating companion for the BIRCHBARK series because it contains actual photographs of the Ojibwe or Chippewa people. And this last one is called Pioneer Days, and this is a fun one. It contains recipes, activities, projects, and games from Pioneer Days. And this is really inclusive and representative of many different cultures, so I really appreciated this one. Oh, it's by David C. King. All right, now let's do some Pioneer crafts. This is called the Whirligig or Buzzsaw. And this is a toy that has been around for centuries. Very simple and easy to make. It's just a button on a string, and it's kind of like the world's first fidget spinner. So you put a button on a string. The button is going through 2 holes across from each other, and then you wind it up like this. Nice and tight. You want to spin it away from you as many times as it takes to get kind of tight on your fingers. And then you just simply pull it. And the momentum of the spinning button causes it to wind back up in the opposite direction, kind of like a yo-yo. This is really fun. So easy. Very cool. So you need a button and you need a piece of string. This is just bakery string. You could use kitchen string. You could use yarn. And you are going to thread it through 2 opposite holes. So this button has 4 holes. I'm just going to go in through 1 and out through the one across from it. Bring my 2 ends together. Try to get it kind of near the end there. Okay, so I've got a simple overhand knot. Now you're going to put a few fingers through the side with the knot and a few fingers through the other side, like so. And to wind it, you're just gonna go like this and spin it as many times as you can away from you until you feel it really tightening up on your fingers. And then you're going to gently pull. And just like a yo-yo, the momentum of that spinning button will wind itself back up. And it's really kind of relaxing and fun. And all you need is a button and some string. This is called either a buzzsaw or some people call it a whirligig. All right, thank you so much for joining me for Book Nook. If you made a whirligig, please share a picture of it with us with an adult's help on Facebook or Instagram. We would love to see what you made. And tune in again next week for Book Nook as we explore a different genre and share some cool crafts to make your reading all the more fun. See you next time.